Hi, this is Gavin Stone from Authentic Human, and today I'm going to show you how to make biltong, which is a firm favorite of South Africans in South Africa and around the world. So we're going to start out with about 3 to 4 pounds of beef. I have got some silverside, or here in the US it's called London broil, and I'm going to show you how to cut that up and salt it, put it in the refrigerator, and then we'll go through the whole rest of the process. And in 2 to 3 days we should be enjoying some really nice biltong. So for those of you who don't know what biltong is, it's essentially a type of jerky like you would get here in the US, except it's not processed. It doesn't contain lots and lots of sugar. The version I'm going to show you how to make actually doesn't include any sugar. There are lots of recipes, there are lots of methods to prepare this. I'm just going to show you the method that works for me. I've been making biltong for a number of years now, and for me it's essentially a really simple method for you to use. You do have a little bit of preparation work for the first time you're going to use it. I'll show you how to make a drying box with a fan on top that is going to give you the best results. I'll also show you how to make the biltong spice, which you can make all naturally. If you go and buy biltong spice online, you're going to get all kinds of MSG and junk in it. It's a very simple mix of spices, and I'll show you how to add in all the different kinds of other spices to customize the taste of your biltong. But the essential biltong spice mix is really simple. Cutting up the meat is simple, salting it, and everything else, if you just break it down step by step, really simple, and in no time at all you're going to be an expert at making biltong just like I am. So for the first step, we are going to cut up our meat and salt it. You're going to need a glass dish. Rectangular glass dish works well. You're going to need a nice sharp knife. You're going to need your meat that you're going to make the biltong out of. Like I said, this is London broil, and you're going to need about half a cup of salt to every 3 or 4 pounds of meat that you're going to cut up. You're also going to need a little bit of aluminum foil to cover it with. We're going to stick it in the refrigerator after we've salted and cut it up. When it comes to food, quality really does count. You want to try and get the highest quality meat that you can possibly get. I've got some organic grass-fed beef here. So to cut up our meat, we're going to look which way the grain is going. The grain is kind of going along this way, so to get the nice longest pieces of strips of meat, we're going to cut with the grain as much as possible. The reason you do that is so when you slice the biltong up afterwards, you're going against the grain, and it makes it a lot more tender. So we're going to take strips. This is about 1 inch thick, so we're just going to take strips that are about 3/4 of an inch thick and just slice through it like that. So there's a number of different cuts that you can make with the biltong. You can keep these kind of 1 inch by 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch strips, and that'll allow you to get some nice strips like that out. The one thing that I like doing is to make what we call snap sticks. So you take that strip, you cut it down the middle, and then you take each one of these halves and you cut them down the middle. So now you've got these thin strips of meat. Those are going to dry a lot quicker, and when they come out, it's going to be a thin stick that you can just break with your hands and eat without having to cut it. So I normally do a mix of these thin snap sticks and then the thicker pieces, and then what that does is we can start eating the snap sticks after the first couple of days, and then we're pacing ourselves, and we can start having the thicker pieces after 3 or 4 days. So we'll just cut up the rest of our biltong. Usually what I like to do is these pieces in the middle, I'll save those to make the snap sticks. The pieces on the end that aren't as uniformly shaped, I'll just save those as they are and hang those up. If you've got any pieces like this where there's a natural break in the meat, you can just cut it along that break and keep those as your pieces. Doesn't matter if there's a little bit of fat on it. A lot of people who like biltong actually like a little bit of fat on it. And then we just take these pieces from the middle that have got the nice shape to them, then enable you to cut them down half and then half again, and we make our snap sticks. It doesn't have to be an exact science. There's a lot of variability. You just want to cut it to give you the best mix and the best final product, because a lot of people like their biltong somewhat wet, a lot of people like it more dry, and I try to cater for all people's tastes, especially in our family. I like it dry. Candace and Kaylin like it a lot more wet, and doing this method, like I said, you can start getting biltong within the first couple of days. It also depends on the climate that you live in. If you're living in a climate that's not nearly as dry as San Diego, it could take you a few more days, and if you live in a more desert climate like Arizona, you're probably going to get it dry in even less time. So what you want to do next is you're just going to sprinkle some of this coarse salt in the bottom of the dish, and we're just going to lay our strips of meat into the dish. Really what you want to do is to dry out the meat as much as possible. You're just going to layer it in. Once we've layered the first level in, we're just going to sprinkle some more salt over the top, and we're going to start with another layer. You don't have to do this very precisely. You can just toss it in, all your different size strips and pieces. You can make everything uniform if you want, if you're planning to get all your biltong out at the same time. But with these strips like that, some's going to be ready quicker than others. If you're layering it like this, try and layer the thicker pieces at the bottom, the thinner pieces at the top. Usually works better for me. And you just cover it all with another thin layer of salt. And I'm just going to wash my hands and then cover this up, put it in the refrigerator, and leave it for about between 1 and 3 hours. And the salt will have extracted a lot of the moisture out of this meat. So we're almost ready to take our meat out of the fridge. It's been sitting there in some salt for a few hours now. So it's time to get our spices ready. I'm going to show you how to mix that up. And once we're done with that, we'll get the meat out and get the salt off and put all the spices on it. So to start off with, the most important ingredient in biltong spice is coriander seed. And you need roughly ground coriander seed. So we've got whole coriander seed, we've got a mortar and pestle here that we're going to give it a rough grind in. The other important ingredient is black pepper, and then after that you can kind of start adding in whatever kind of spices you like. I'm going to add in some paprika, some chipotle, and also some finely ground coriander that'll just give it a more even coat as well as the roughly chopped coriander. So in our mortar and pestle, we're going to add in all of the spices. If you don't have a mortar and pestle, you can use a spice grinder or a food processor or something like that. So this is 3 tablespoons of coriander, whole coriander seed, 1 tablespoon of black pepper, and we're just going to start with that, and we're just going to use our pestle and grind it up in the mortar just to a kind of rough consistency. Essentially you just want to crack all of the coriander seeds. If you've got the time to add additional flavor to the coriander seeds, you can just dry roast them in a pan first, and you get a much more intense flavor in your out of your coriander seed. It gives that biltong that much more intense flavor. Once we've got them a bit more of a rough chop, we can add in our other spices. This is 2 teaspoons of ground coriander, half a teaspoon of chipotle pepper, or you can use whatever kind of chili powder you have, and 1 teaspoon of paprika. What also works well is about half a teaspoon of baking soda. It helps to make the meat more tender, and it also helps to stop bacteria forming. So we just add that in, and we continue to grind it up. Okay, so after a couple of minutes of grinding it up, this is the kind of consistency you're left with. You've got some of the fine spices as well as a lot of roughly ground black pepper and coriander, and that's basically what you're wanting to go for. If you need to take a shortcut instead of mixing all your own biltong spices, if you can find pickling spices, it's going to give you a pretty similar consistency and the mix of spices that you're going to need. You've got a lot of whole coriander in there, whole black pepper, mustard seed, a bunch of other stuff. If you just take this and grind it up, you're going to be left with pretty much the same thing as what biltong spice is. You can always add a few other spices into this, chili peppers and things like that, and it'll give you a jump start instead of starting from scratch on your spices. Next step is to mix up your vinegar solution, which is going to finish curing the meat and is going to make sure that there's no bacteria or mold growing on your biltong. And you can really use any type of vinegar. I've got two different types of organic vinegar here. One is a white wine vinegar and one is just a plain white distilled vinegar. We're going to use about a cup of each. We're just going to put them into a bowl, and to this we're also going to add a little bit of Worcestershire sauce. And you can just stick with a plain vinegar, or you can go and add in a Worcestershire sauce or any other of your favorite sauces. It's going to give the biltong a lot more flavor. So it's really up to you. You can leave it out, or you can add in whatever sauces you want. So in goes the white wine vinegar, and then we're going to add about 2 tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce. Again, this is organic Worcestershire sauce that I got from Jimbo's. And just give it a bit of a stir. And we are ready to get our meat out of the refrigerator. There we go. Meat's been soaking. You can take a look and you can see how much of the liquid that the salt has pulled out of the meat. The longer you leave it in, the more liquid is going to come out, but then the saltier the meat gets. So it depends on how salty you like your biltong as to how long you actually go and just leave this to sit in the salt in the refrigerator. What we're going to do now is we're going to take the strips of meat out, and we're just going to rinse the salt off in the vinegar mixture, and at the same time it's going to get nicely coated, and we're just going to lay it into a second glass dish. What you don't want to do is rinse it off in water, because all the hard work that you've done having the salt draw excess moisture out of the meat is going to be undone if you go and put it back into water. So the vinegar liquid bath works well at getting the salt off, and at the same time getting everything nice and evenly coated in the vinegar, which is going to make sure that it is properly cured. Once the first layer of meat is in, we're going to start liberally spreading our biltong spice over everything. And we're actually just going to give everything a flip so we get it covered on both sides. And now we just put spices on the other side as well. And go for our second layer. Dipping the meat into the vinegar mixture and just layering it on top. After a quick hand wash, we're going to put the last layer of the spice on top of the meat. Just trying to get everything with a nice even coating. And now your meat is essentially ready to take it and hang it up in your drying box. What I like to do is actually just take a little bit of the vinegar and just drizzle it over, and we're going to put it back in the refrigerator for a few hours just to marinate a little bit more. Let more of the spice soak into the meat, so that when we do go and hang it up, it's got even more of this flavor. Also, it lets the Worcestershire sauce sink in a little bit more, just everything get a lot more intense. So I'm going to cover this back up, put it back in the refrigerator, a couple more hours, and then I'll show you how to hang it up. So our biltong's been marinating for a few hours. We're going to take it out and hang it up now. Let's take a look. Smells like biltong already. You can see it's still nicely coated with the spices. There's a little bit of liquid still at the bottom, which is the remainder of the marinade. And we're ready to hang it up. Let's go to the garage. So here we are in the garage. This is my biltong drying rack that I built. It's pretty simple to put together. It's just a plank of wood at the bottom. Got everything from Home Depot. Some strips of wood that I've created or formed into a box shape, and then some insect netting that I've just stapled on the inside. I created it to fit a box fan or a window fan that I also got from Home Depot, and I put that on top, plug it in. These are some racks that I got from the kitchen department in Home Depot. Just constructed it so that I can hang 2 levels of biltong in here. Got a hinge, put in the door. Same thing, a frame for the door, insect netting on the inside, and then just a couple of hooks and eyes to hold it shut, and you've got a simple biltong drying rack. So to hang up the meat, I've got some galvanized wire that I've cut into S hooks. You can use paper clips or any other kind of hook that you want. You can reuse these, just soak them in some vinegar and some baking soda, and make sure they're nice and clean and sterilized, and they're good to go for a bunch of times. I've now lined the bottom here with some paper towels just to catch any drips, and we just are going to hang up all the biltong. It's a pretty simple process. You just take one of your hooks, pass it through the top of the biltong, and we hang it up. Doesn't matter how you do it. I like to do it in kind of neatish rows, and we're just going to finish hanging the rest of this up. So here we are, everything's nice and hung up. The important thing is not to crowd it, keep everything with a nice even space around it. We are going to close up our drying rack, and we're going to turn the fan on. The thinner pieces are going to be ready in probably about 2 days, the thicker pieces in about 4 or 5 days. And we'll be enjoying biltong in no time. I'll check back with you in a couple of days and show you how it looks. So 3 days later, and our biltong is ready. Switch the fan off and we're going to take it out. I've been checking it over the last couple of days, and the way that you check to see if it's ready, if you squeeze it, it's dry on the outside and it gives a little bit in the middle. Depending on how you like your biltong, you can leave it less or more dry. The snap sticks are definitely ready. They're nice and dry. They're going to snap nice and easily. And Kaylin, do you want to come help? Can you hold the dish, and we're going to get this out. We're just going to pull each hook out. Come hold it up high. Hold it up here, close. Close. There we go. And
what did you put on these?
all the different biltong spice.
These are for snap sticks.
Yeah. Should we try one of the snap sticks?
Okay.
Watch, we snap it. There you go. There's a piece for you. Piece for me. That's good. Okay, let's get the rest of these out and go and start eating.
We can have these snap sticks for lunch.
Sure.
Yeah, I love snap sticks.
Came out nice. So this has been Gavin Stone from Authentic Human. You can catch me on authentic-human.com or follow me on Twitter @GavinStone. And I hope you enjoy this biltong as much as we do. Right, this was great. And catch you next time.
Bye.